Well, good evening, everyone. Good to see you all. Yes, this is going to be a practical session. There will be things that I'll be getting you to do.
We have to be friendly.
Lock the doors, everyone.
You could take me home probably.
And I want to reiterate what Dennis said, that I'm not coming from the point of view of you're not a welcoming church and therefore you need to lift your game, but we are a welcoming church, and that is clearly evident. But there are things that we can do to, I guess, be more welcoming and think through how we can approach different aspects of our time together in a more intentional way, so that people new amongst us are cared for, well, loved, don't slip through the cracks, that sort of thing. So to begin with, just a very simple little exercise. I'd like you to turn to the person next to you, or if you're a group of three, you could do it in a group of three, however. And the first thing I want you to do is share for a minute or two a positive experience that you had of being welcomed at a church. What was done or said that was helpful? Might be this church, maybe you were on holiday somewhere and you went to church because that's what you do on a Sunday. And what was your experience, your positive experience of being welcomed in that church? Everyone clear on the question? Something of their positive experience of being welcomed at a church. What was it about the visit that you found welcoming?
Well, Dennis had a really good one.
Dobbing in, mate.
One of the things I hate is where out the front they say, who's visiting, where are you from, and all that.
Oh, yes.
But when I was in Barrow in Alaska, at the Presbyterian church, the minister said, we've got people from all over, so who's, and of course I'm from Australia. Now, it wasn't the experience in church, it was the next couple of days when walking down the street, members of the congregation would come up and shake my hand and say, tell us about Australia, or welcome you enjoying Barrow, or can we show you such and such, or have you been to that restaurant, it's good. And so it wasn't the church service itself, it was the next 4 or 5 days that they made me feel welcome.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Dennis. Anybody else like to share their positive experience?
Right, okay.
John?
I was just telling John, when I was in Canada, there was a little place called Charlotte Lake. Probably only more than about 300 people lived in the town. But I went to church with my family, and the rector made a point of after the service. We were welcomed at the door, but no big deal. But after the service, he made a point of asking us who we were and where we were from, and then a little while later invited us home for dinner. And the good part about that was there was a red and a white wine involved. And from then on, it was a very warm, friendly relationship we had with him and with other members of the congregation.
Yeah, nice. Did anyone have a positive experience in Australia?
Well, I was going to say I might share mine. This was an experience where we were actually looking for a new church. So our family had moved areas in Sydney, and we'd moved just before Christmas, and so New Year's Day we fronted up to our local Anglican just to check it out. And you don't really expect much to be happening on New Year's Day, but the service was good. I don't remember too much about the service. I was 12. But after the service, they hadn't yet got into the habit of having morning tea at the church, but the congregation members were very good at hospitality, and a lot of people lived quite close. So a couple had obviously spotted that we were new, got chatting and invited us around to their place for morning tea afterwards, and they'd gathered like 4 or 5 other families who had kids similar age to me, introduced me. I met girls that I was then going to go to school with the next year, and then every week for the next few weeks they organised for us to be hosted at various different places to meet more members of the congregation.
Wow.
So we
That's just,
That's
We didn't-
next level.
we
That
didn't
is-
leave for another 15 years, and that was because of some other event.
Ah, okay, right. I thought it was the next one that you were describing.
So Alex, can I just very quickly say, talk about Australia, I can say that Alison welcomed us, she was welcoming when Greg and I first came here. She was wonderful. You explained things to us, and then after morning tea, you made sure that we were okay, but I think then subsequent visits, times that we came, you still spotted us and, how are you going and that kind of thing. So I would say that was a very positive experience because we used to learn.
I think the follow-up is very important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the key thing that from each of these stories that we've heard is follow-up. It's going that extra, building the relationships and, on the street in the days ahead, after the service, being invited for a meal, staying with the people's houses and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And we were immediately welcomed into a choir. Oh, Michael and I. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you became a member straight away.
Awesome. That's great. Okay, for the next couple of minutes, I want you to do the same thing, but I want you to recall a negative experience.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's a bad experience, but it was an experience at a local church where a long time ago I thought I was just going to check it out. It was there were so many people coming and talking to us, but it was they wanted to know everything about you. And so you just move 2 steps and then the next person comes, and it wasn't it was too much.
Right.
And to me personally, that's negative. It was just all too much.
So a bit too over the top.
Oh yes.
Right.
If you- Yeah, it's great to be friendly, but to just keep, asking really the in-depth
No,
questions.
there are
In-depth, what
boundaries.
intrusive question.
Oh, just full on.
Yeah.
I have an opposite one. I was a nominator, so I went to a lot of different churches. And this one was in the western suburbs of Sydney, and we'd been given great reports on this wonderful church and this wonderful minister and all that. So I was excited. I thought, maybe this is the last one I've got to go to, We found him. And we arrived there and walked in, and we didn't really know where to go because in these modern churches, there doesn't always seem to be a right entrance, And, we got in. Nobody said anything to us. So we stood there for a while. No one said anything, so we went and sat down. Came out afterwards. No one said anything. And we thought, we'll go to morning tea. Oh, first of all, we went and said hello to the minister and told him we were new, but he didn't introduce us to anybody or say anything, and sort of just turned away from us to go and talk to somebody else. So we went out to morning tea and we stood there looking hungry, and nobody said, can I get you or anything like that. So we helped ourselves and stood there. Nobody said anything, and we just drifted off, and that was it.
Mm.
The week before, in a friendly place, there was this lady who came out to say goodbye to us and came out onto the footpath, and as we drove off, she got her hanky out and waved.
Oh,
I mean, it was so
Yeah.
opposite.
Yeah.
I didn't nominate him.
I don't think he wanted to be somehow.
No.
Any other negative but different experiences, Kylie?
This wasn't me personally, I was at the church, but I invited people along, and while they were welcomed well, they refused to come back to the church because other people were new the same day and they didn't like how the other people were welcomed, meaning different welcoming for different kinds of people.
Oh.
Yes,
Different
I've also seen,
I will touch on that.
yeah, I've seen similar things happening
Yeah.
with people being sort of ushered to the back because they're new and sort of the church congregation will sit in the front rows and they just automatically just go, you're at the back, or it's not from our church.
Yeah, wow, okay. Oh, look, thank you for those. Is there any other burning stories that people are desperate to tell? Okay. We want, and I feel like I'm preaching to the choir a little, okay? You know what that means? Yeah. We want everyone who comes into our building, no matter who they are, to feel welcome. Why? Is it just about growing our church? Or meeting our budget? More bums on seats means more offertory. Does it mean if our church is full, we can pat ourselves on the back and say, job well done? Or is it something more? I think one of the main objectives, which we might call a theology of welcoming, focuses on creating an environment and a culture where everyone who comes into the building feels welcome and included. Because I think the welcome that individuals receive when they first come in the door sets the tone for their entire experience. I think we gain them or we lose them potentially in those first couple of minutes. It doesn't matter how good the music is or the preaching is or the kids program. If the welcome isn't there, that's the thing that will stick in people's minds. And case in point, Susanna was going to mention our experience in the UK, and that is when we think of bad welcoming, both our minds go to exactly the same experience. Big church, big evangelical church in London, and great programs, great preaching, fabulous music.
Worldwide reputation of being a good church.
Worldwide reputation, absolutely, of being a flagship evangelical church. And I even reached out to the rector before we travelled to say, hi, I'm coming to London, we'll come to church on this particular Sunday, it'd be lovely to meet you. Anyway, we turned up. I think we were welcomed at the door, and I think we were shown seats.
Yes.
But when the kids program started, the kids all went off. We weren't told, we had 3 children with us, we weren't told where to send the kids, or there was no sort of mechanism to take the children. They all just seemed to disappear. So the girls, didn't want to go, nor did we know where they were to go. And after the service, the minister was greeting people at the door. I said, hi, I'm Aleks Pinter, I'm from Sydney, I made contact with you. He couldn't have cared less. And very kind of sort of dismissed you from the Antipodes. And we tried to go to morning tea, but we weren't sure where it was, and I think we did find it, and it was massively crowded, so we left and had morning tea in a cafe. And that's our lasting impression of that church. Not the brilliant preaching but how we were treated. But why should we do this, and do we have to do this. I mean, we're a happy little congregation, and we all get on really, really well, and we could just, leave things as they are, maintain the status quo. Why do we want to be thinking about what we can do to be more welcoming? The answer is because I think it's what Jesus would have done. One of Jesus's most delightful characteristics of his earthly ministry was his ability to draw people in, to welcome everyone, no matter who they were. It speaks to the comment that Kylie, you made, no matter who they were, and Jesus was particularly good at drawing in the morally and the socially outcast, which of course we know he received huge criticism for. Everyone was welcome at Jesus' table. It's hard to distinguish a pattern in his choice of people with whom he ate with, celebrated with, rested with, talked with, except perhaps that they represented every possible social and cultural stratum: rich, poor, Jew, Gentile, pious, prostitute, insider, outsider. Everyone was welcome at Jesus' table. And the image of Jesus at table, so common in the Gospels, is significant because in Jewish culture, to eat with someone was to accept him or her as family. We don't have quite the same sense of table fellowship in our culture that other cultures do. It was extremely strong in Jewish culture, but I think it's also fairly strong here too. Maybe not to the same extent, but people appreciate being invited to a meal, don't they? And Jesus' table never lacked people. People of every conceivable type. All felt embraced by Jesus, whether they acknowledged their need for him or not. So in Jesus we see God's fulfilment of his desire for unity across all the barriers. And so as we seek to be Jesus to our world, and Ali uses the expression which I love, being Jesus' hands and feet, it means that we must welcome everybody, all kinds of people. Our table should look like his table. So developing a theology that acknowledges that all people are welcome is paramount. If we exclude people, any people at all, then we exclude Christ that welcomed all. If we discriminate on outer appearances or behaviours, we are excluding Christ, who ate with tax collectors and sinners. If we see the homeless person simply as poor or whatever, we could be in danger of being complacent with the structures of injustice in our society. What about the person of colour, or an LGBTI person, or a trans person? Surely the gospel calls us to welcome all people the same way. That does not mean that we have to agree with behaviours or whatever, but it does mean we extend the hand of fellowship and welcome. Seeing the things in the eyes of Jesus can be uncomfortably transforming, yet we are invited to a comfort which is never ending, superseding the spirit of discomfort. The comfort we have in Christ is far greater than any discomfort we might feel by welcoming people. Our comfort comes from knowing that we are all loved, and so our message is to speak that Jesus died for all. Jesus died for you. No matter what anyone says, God will always love you. And that's the message surely we want to convey to people. So I have a little worksheet for you all, and we are going to go through it. There's a little bit of a Bible study on the first page, which I'm very happy for you all to sort of do together in small groups. So have a look at the Bible study, the read 1 Peter 4, 7, 11. And I'll give you a little bit of time to do that together. Feel free to talk about it. Peter 4, 7 to 11, the end of all things is near. That's the context in which he's writing in. He's writing about the last days, and because it's the last days, therefore we should be doing certain things. Therefore be alert and of sober mind so that you may pray. Above all, love each other deeply because love covers over a multitude of sins. Offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. If anyone speaks, they should do so as one who speaks the very words of God. So, quite the charge. If anyone serves, they should do so with the strength God provides, so that in all things God may be praised through Jesus Christ. To him be the glory and the power forever and ever. Amen. So above all things, what should we be doing to each other?
Love one another.
Love one another.
Deeply.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly. How does love cover over sins, do you think?
I thought of, it's in Corinthians, love is patient, love is kind, all the fruits of the Spirit. Because I figure all of those things, that's what came to mind. I'm
Yep.
totally wrong. That we're not saying it's what their sin is, I guess, right, but we're still loving them through other ways.
It's sort of loving despite the
Yes.
sin, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. You hear my dad answer really well.
So it creates an atmosphere of forgiveness and tolerance.
Yes, yes.
And it's not judgment.
Forgiveness.
Yes, if you're seeking to love in the face of sin, you're actually showing forgiveness and acceptance and non-judgmentalism, yes. Also, I think it's a picture of Christ too, because Christ loved us in going to the cross for us despite our sin. What do welcoming and follow-up have to do with faithfully administering God's grace?
Are we God's stewards or, I'm trying to think there's a different word to advocates, we're
I like steward.
ambassadors, that's it.
Ambassadors, yeah.
That was the word.
Yes. We are Christ's ambassadors. And so as grace has been administered to us, we are called to seek to extend that grace to others, and one of the ways that we will do that is through our welcoming. How can we be better at loving others deeply? Did anyone come up with some sort of specific examples of how we might do that?
Nancy said talk to people.
Yep.
And we had use our gifts.
Yep.
Think beyond ourselves and imagine what Christ would do and remember to pray.
Yeah, nice. Anything from the left side of the room?
Yeah. Basically, what you guys were all saying, we were just discussing it at the same time.
I think doing things for people, complimenting people, encouraging them. Those sorts of things.
Smile.
Yeah, works of service.
Ask non-confrontational questions,
Yes.
right, that invite them, open questions
Yes.
around them, but
Yes.
be cautious
Yeah.
to not offend or
Yeah.
put people in positions where they feel,
Yeah.
hello, he's prying into my personal affairs.
Because we want to invite people into relationship, don't we? We don't want to enforce relationship on them. We're inviting them in. Yeah.
And introduce them to other people,
Yes.
right? Not just hovering the ground yourself. Get them involved with others as well.
Yeah.
So this is Joe and this is Mary. And
Yeah.
all the rest.
Don't be in your own circles.
Yes.
Well, that's hard.
Yes, I will
noticed
talk
that-
about that later on.
I've noticed that at morning tea, the newcomers will come in and people are in their own groups and won't go to the newcomer because they don't necessarily want to
because we're shy.
Well, I think there may be a little bit of shyness, but I also think there's an element of it's just not noticed. I will talk about going to morning tea intentionally, thinking about morning tea as an intentional ministry after supper.
One of the things that came up in the passage was talking about hospitality without grumbling. So it addresses our attitude as well.
Yes, very true. Yeah, good pickup. Yeah.
And serving into God's strength, not expecting that we have to have all the gifts and all the personality traits and be an extrovert and all of that. It's God's strength.
It's shame. Yeah. Yes. We won't go through all the questions, but yeah, have a think about them yourselves. There's a strong emphasis in the New Testament on unity, mutual love and care within the Christian fellowship. What do you think welcoming has to do with this, and why is it important?
I think that it's important when we do anything to do it the same way God would do it, and with God's love. So like, I'm going to handle it, but all the key words you have in here, like when meeting as a group in unity, showing mutual love and care. Why are we not doing that to new people? Why are we waiting till they're in here to do it? Why are we out there welcoming people from an evangelistic point of view to get them to be new people? Why does it stop when they leave? Why aren't we following that first step? Like it's all showing God's love because He showed it to us.
Yeah, so those things extend beyond just our little huddle to embracing others as well.
Yeah, but it's also, I know what we're talking about here specifically welcoming at church, but the church is one big body, so we should be doing this everywhere all the time, and it should just come out second nature at church.
Yep, cool, thank you.
I, therefore, a prisoner for the Lord, urge you to walk in a manner worthy of calling to which you have been called, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love, eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, just as you were called to the one hope that belongs to your call. One Lord, one faith, one baptism. One God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all.
Anybody glean anything from that passage about welcoming?
To be humble,
Humble?
patient, gentle.
I think humility is a really key thing.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah. Gentleness, patience, bearing with one another in love, which has a little bit of a sense of, I know I need to love this person, when I really might not be feeling so much like it. And so there's that new person over there, bear with them in love, so I'll go over and I'll have a chat, you know. Yes, all right. 1 John 3.
We know that we have passed from death to life because we love our brothers. Anyone who does not love remains in death. Anyone who hates his brother is a murderer. And you know no murderer has eternal life in him. This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and we'll lay down our lives for our brothers. If anyone has material possessions and sees his brother in need and has no pity on him, how can the love of God be in him? Dear children, let us not love with words or tongue, but with actions and in truth.
What might that say about welcoming?
If Jesus can do it, surely we can.
Well, yeah. I mean, to go so far as to lay down his life.
Surely we can talk to a new person.
Surely we can talk to a new person. Yeah.
Jesus has gone to the cross for us.
Yeah,
Surely we could.
yeah. And let us not love with words or speech, but with actions. Love in action. That's what James bangs on about all the time, isn't it? Romans 12.
Okay. 9 to 17. Okay. Love must be sincere. Hate what is evil. Cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in love. Honour one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervour serving the Lord. Joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with the Lord's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Mourn with those who mourn. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of low position. Do not be conceited. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. Can I read the next verse as well? If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone.
What do you glean from that one? There's a constant thread of love, isn't there, through all of them?
In the second paragraph of that, with rejoicing and mourning, and living in harmony with each other, it's walking alongside each other.
Yeah, good pick up. Okay, so whose responsibility is it to welcome newcomers?
Alex's.
Fail. Apart from the rector.
Alex, wouldn't it be everyone's role in their
Absolutely.
own way?
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, it's everyone's responsibility. And that doesn't mean whether you're on the welcoming roster per se or a general body in the church. I'm going to read this column, bad welcoming equals feeling unwelcome and unloved, and then we might take a break. Welcoming is a unique ministry. It has the power to communicate a clear message, good or bad, to newcomers, almost as clear as the Bible talk itself. The church is meant to be the body of Christ on earth. It's meant to embody Christ's love and compassion. Making people feel loved as they first come among our church family is a pretty clear way of showing this love and compassion. To a newcomer, our church is a foreign environment. When you already feel like you don't belong, that feeling only escalates when nobody talks to you or cares about you during your entire stay. What an indictment it would be upon us if people made the comment, "I didn't feel like I belonged. Nobody came up and talked to me." Welcoming has to be intentional, it has to be loving, it has to be compassionate. When someone comes among the family of believers, they should feel deeply loved, not just through the words from the front, but through the words and actions of the people around them. From the hello to the conversations before church, the sitting next to, the asking for details to stay in touch, morning tea, follow-up letter, phone call, meal. We need to be administering God's grace to people who walk through our doors. While bad welcoming equals feeling unwelcome and unloved, good welcoming can mean the start of a relationship that brings praise to God through Jesus Christ. So on the second page of the handout, Love and Care, Why Welcoming is Essential, there are 5 points there. One, welcoming points people to the gospel. Our God is a welcoming God, and when we welcome people warmly and lovingly, we demonstrate God's love and point them to Jesus. When anyone goes into a new and unfamiliar situation, they feel anxious. Visitors to the church are in an unfamiliar setting, which may make them feel nervous. People often visit churches around significant times in life. When they move to a new community, change marital status, have a baby, have a close friend or loved one die, are ill, change jobs, face unemployment. At such times, people are receptive to new ideas and new commitments. But if they're not welcomed properly, the first time they might not try again. Many people are searching for meaning in life. They return to old values, including church. Studies show that a person's original denomination is no longer a significant factor in why they choose a church. The more significant factor are warmth and friendliness, relevance and style. Churches grow if they have a good system for welcoming people and helping them to feel included. There are many people in our community recovering from broken relationships, divorce, separation, family breakdown. There are many sole parents. These people are looking for family and community. The welcoming church will attract them. A couple of welcoming traps. This isn't about trying to snare people. It's about the traps that we might fall into in not properly welcoming people. And so there are two major traps. Thinking it's only the minister's job. That's why we pay him, isn't it?
Yes.
Wrong.
Oh.
Sometimes it's impossible for the minister to meet every new person, and so we need to be strategic about who we think it's essential for him to meet. As welcomers, we should be the ones meeting newcomers and going out of our way to introduce them to the minister. Sometimes also, just as an aside, I can get caught at morning tea. So I'll be chatting with new people and I can't get away. And there are other people I need to speak to, perhaps other things I need to do, whatever. It would be great if people were, at morning tea, were a little bit cognizant of that, and they look and they go, oh, Alex has been with that couple for 15 minutes. Maybe I'll just go up and butt in, and just in case he needs relieving.
Can I add a nice word? Jill and I used to call it tag team.
Yeah.
You just tag team. I think we did that quite well on Sunday even with Dinah. Yeah, tag team.
Yeah, and sometimes if I can catch people's eye, I'll try and get them to, come over. And it worked really well on Sunday. It worked really well on Sunday in a slightly different context, which I'll come to a bit later. But yeah, if I catch your eye, I might be saying, please come rescue me.
No. You go and get them, right? Your simple line is,
though.
Mary, I want you to meet so-and-so. And you pick on whoever, right?
Yeah, I've done that. Some people talk
and
say,
yeah, this is so-and-so, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me for a minute, I've got to go and see.
Yeah. I know, and I do try. Sometimes you get caught though, and it can be very hard to kind of extract yourself.
You've got to learn techniques where you escape from situations that are important, but you need to be able to escape from them, and that's just introduce them to another person, let them take over the role, right? And you skip them a line like, oh, Mary's just come from such and such a place, and it's her first visit here. Right? Okay, so we've got them lined up. You shoot through. Yeah,
I did that on Sunday. I caught the eye of two people, and they came over, and they said, "Do you know?" And I think we've met. And at that point, I said, "Right, I've got to go and run a training session." So I didn't leave the people. I left them with other people. So that worked well. But sometimes it's hard when there are some people who just talk 10 to a dozen, and it's hard to get a word in to say. Thinking it's everybody's job is the other one. There's a sense in which welcoming can be artificial, because we have these structures in place to make sure that we cover the bases, but we don't want the structure to override the genuineness and the love of relationships. And part of the issue with having a sort of like this structure and this sense of, it's everybody's job. When it's everybody's job, nobody does it. That sort of paradox. So we need to be careful of that. There's a bit of a pathway in that most people make. I won't go through that. There's a welcoming sort of structure on the third page, which is tried and true, a little bit similar, a little bit different to our own. What I'd like to do is spend a little bit of time thinking about morning tea and thinking intentionally about that time after church. So obviously morning tea time, or if it's an evening service, supper, it's accepted tradition amongst most churches. Most of us do it. But what is it really about? Is it really just about the coffee and the cake? Is it about catching up with your friends you haven't seen all week? Or is it something else? Well, I think we can honestly say yes to both of those questions. It is about the coffee and the cake. We are very concerned about having good coffee at morning tea. We have yummy food provided every week, which is great. And we enjoy that. So I want to acknowledge those things and say, yes, it is about those things. But it's also more than that. We need to see that informal time after church as about being about something more. That's thinking intentionally about this time. It reflects the belief that church is the people, that church isn't just the formal service that takes place in the church building and as if that's all it is. The informal gathering after the formal one gives the opportunity for those who are at church to welcome and greet one another, to build one another up in love. So there's opportunities of fellowship amongst the regular crowd, obviously, and we can be intentional about that, not talking about the weather or whatever, but actually maybe engaging with what was talked about in church. And as service leaders in the training yesterday, we talked a bit about how we might encourage more intentional engagement amongst the crowd who come out here for morning tea. But the time after church is not always a happy time for everyone. I have experienced this myself when visiting other churches. You might know how it feels. You finish being part of the service, you line up for your coffee and biscuit, and then you just stand there, hoping somebody might come and speak to you. Particularly in a church family that you don't know well, or for a visitor, it's possible to be left alone completely in a large group of people. I was at this point going to mention our experience in the UK, which I think I've already done. And it's a really hollow feeling, being left alone. It makes you feel not valued, not loved.
Contagious?
Yeah, maybe a little contagious too, yeah.
And you feel conspicuous.
Yeah. Yeah, you just want the ground to open up and swallow you.
Can I
Avoid
just
you.
add, Alex, sometimes it happens when you go to a church for 20 years.
Yeah.
No, I'm not joking.
Yeah.
Some weeks I stand there by myself. I don't know whether, I'm not asking people to go on a roster or anything. But I
The
genuinely
roster.
have found
Is there a
at
duty
times,
role for that?
oh look, I've, taking up the role of loner. I'm on that own roster. But no, even at times I have found that nobody talks to me. Maybe the tribe has spoken after all. There has been many times over the years that does happen. So well, you just go and find someone and talk to them.
Can I say sometimes when we've come out and we're busy tidying up
Yeah.
and we come out late
Yeah.
and everyone's in their established groups.
Yeah.
That's hard.
And you come out and go, okay, so they're talking there, they're talking there.
I don't want to interrupt them.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
because you don't know,
Yeah.
is this a personal conversation they're
Yes.
having? Because 90% of that people have known each other since they were in childhood together. So therefore, being a newer comer, it is
that's
more
what I
difficult.
was talking about, the mate circles.
Yes, and I'm coming to it. Why is it that people, especially newcomers or quiet people, get missed at morning tea? I think too, the table if people linger too long at the table, it's not that interesting. It doesn't take that long to absorb what's on there. And if they're lingering too long there, it's because nobody's talking to them and they need to look like they're not, and so they'll go and hang at the table. I don't think it's because church people are callous or we're cruel. I just don't think we think intentionally about morning tea as an opportunity to serve other people. I think we see it as time to catch up with our friends, and if everyone sees morning tea time like this, then regular attenders will be greeted and welcomed and will form into our, I call them holy huddles, and people who are coming in late will be ignored, quiet people will be ignored, newcomers will be ignored, and I think this is an area we can do better at. Sometimes I come into this room, having been doing other things, and I see the huddles as well. And I come in, I stand at that door, and I survey the room and have a look what's going on. And I'll see a group there and a group there, there'll be a group lined up there, and there might be a couple standing on their own, or a couple standing on their own here. And that's what I discovered on Sunday. And this couple, they've been around for a little while, but they don't put themselves forward. And I just feel very kind of overly sensitive towards them, and so I made a beeline to them, and I was chatting with them here, knowing that I needed to go and run a training session. Sorry, I'm off camera. And then I spotted two people over there and got their eye, and they picked up on my sort of body language, and they came over, and I was able to create a conversation so I could then leave. But I did come in one Sunday, and there were two couples on their own. And it's like, I can't do both. So these holy huddles, these conversation circles, fine, but I think what we need to do is we need to be aware of the people on their own, the fringe person, and I think if you're in a group, from time to time, lift your gaze. Just you're in a circle and you're chatting with your friend, and I don't think it's rude, but just to look around and just see what else is going on around the room, and if you spot people who are on their own, say, oh sorry, I'm just going to go and chat to these new people, or such and such, they're on their own there, I'll come drag them into the conversation, or something like that. I guess the situation that you described, I've gone up to them and said, is this a private conversation? May I join?
Yes, it is a private conversation and you're not welcome.
I was about to say, what happens when they say that?
Well,
But
they can say,
if it's a private conversation, should they really be having it where it can be
No, you're right.
hit, heard, and be
Yeah.
in a public place? Shouldn't they?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I might be bold enough to say, well, you shouldn't be having it here then. Church is where we are to build one another up. It's where we come to serve, not to be served. Christians need to see the church service as an opportunity to be an encouragement to other people and to be intentional about it. If we're not, we actually fall into the category of being consumers. And we're not consumers in church. We start to measure our services by how much we personally benefit. The sermon is only good if it deals with our current pressing needs. The morning tea is only good if the coffee is good, or we get to talk to our friends. And unless others are encouraging us, we leave disappointed. So how can we turn this around? I'm painting a extremely negative scenario of that. How can we turn this around? How can we be more intentional about morning tea? I think the first thing is obviously prayer. Pray before you come to church. Ask God to give you opportunities whilst you're here to build others up. Come expecting to serve and welcome and encourage others, and I think if you come with that expectation, because it's on your radar, you'll find that God is actually giving you those opportunities. He was giving them to you before, it's just they weren't quite on your radar, so you might not have noticed them. But I think when we pray about it, we bring it to the forefront of our minds, and so therefore we notice them more. Maybe when you come to morning tea, don't make a beeline to the coffee queue or the food table. Do what I do, stand at the door, scan the room, see if there are new people or fringe people, and maybe go and talk to them. If you've not met them, introduce yourself as if they were coming into your own lounge room. You know, think of this as your home. And that's what I was explaining to the service leaders yesterday. That's why I don't welcome people from the front anymore. Because when you welcome the regular members to church, you're actually saying that you're visiting. And I want us to get past the idea that we're all visiting this place when we come on a Sunday. We're actually in our home. So I will say hello to you, and I'll say good morning, and then I'll say welcome to anyone who's visiting, or welcome to those on the live stream. I wonder if anyone's picked up on that. It's a very slight change in my language. And so if you see somebody and they're standing on their own, not sure what to do, you might say, hey, do you want a coffee? Come to the line with me. Because you can catch up with your friends anytime. God has brought this person, whoever it might be, today, and your conversation might make someone feel welcome, and it could be an important step towards them coming to know Jesus. Or it might be an opportunity for you to build up another believer. I am not saying don't talk to your friends. But as I say, while you're having those conversations, scan the room. Just have a look around, see what's going on, be aware of your surroundings, and if you see a situation that you think you could help to resolve, then do it. If you're with a newcomer, hopefully this has happened at the door when they came in, but if you're with a newcomer, maybe check to see that they've been given a welcome pack. They might not have been, and so you could get them a welcome pack. Whilst you're conversing with them, you might ask them, do you have any questions about our church? You could see if you could get them to fill out the card so we can follow them up. And this is all, though, got to be in the context of conversation. You wouldn't just hit them with those questions one after another in the first minute of a conversation. That would be too intense. But in the course of conversation, you might say, hey, did you get a welcome pack when you arrived? Oh, let me get you one. That sort of thing. Going the extra mile. Susanna, you gave the example of the church that you're at with all the various families inviting you to their homes for morning tea and lunches and stuff like that. That's really going the extra mile. But if you don't have plans after church, why not ask them to join you for lunch at a cafe or coffee or something, or even to your own home if you know you've got the fridge stocked. It's generally our problem, there's never anything in it. But that's being intentional about morning tea. And I think the way we approach it reveals a lot about our hearts. It's a great opportunity that we can serve and bless others. I'm wondering if, as I've mentioned all of that, is there anything I've forgotten? And maybe there are things that you do that you have found successful.
Can I say, when we were fairly new, we were invited to your home for a, it was, no, you were, it was new people who had recently.
Was that 40-degree hot day?
Hot, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was lovely because we actually met others who were Going through the same. Yeah. And that was a lovely thing. I don't know if it's been done since or whether it's done on a regular basis, but that really was a lovely thing.
COVID got in the way.
It probably did, yeah.
I
But
think
that was a nice
another
thing.
thing is having a regular person that is always there for you without being too caring is another way I've noticed, mainly in this church, that people that are newcomers might have some that may not want to sit up the back, but may sit up the back to say, well, if they've got questions about a service, they can bounce it to the older parts of, and I say old, not age-wise, but like the people that have been established, do we go up to get communion or is it brought to us? Things.
Yeah, explain how things work.
A couple of things I was going to say is, I've got into the habit of doing it myself, is when newcomers come, there's pretty reliable people in our church, is escort them and invite them to sit with someone who I think they'd probably really hit it off with those people, and introduce them. And I did that to Grant and Joan, I think, once. They didn't bat an eyelid. They said, oh yes, come and sit with us. And I thought, oh, thank goodness for those people.
Yes.
Because those people instantly, then they all hit it off. And
When I
could go back then and do what I had to do.
Yeah, when I can actually organise to spend some time with the people who are officially welcomers, it's kind of changed a little now that we've got the teams at 10 o'clock. But what I would love to see is that we have a system where we've got two people on the door doing the welcoming, and say new couple come, new family come, give their details, whatever, and one of the welcomers says, come with me, and takes them into the church, finds them seats, plants them next to another family, or if it's a senior couple, they might go and take them up and sit them next to Joan and Grant, another seniors couple, and then we look after them that way. Or also with the pastoral care team, which I'm wanting to build, is that the welcomer might take them up to whoever the pastoral care person on for the day is, and say, this is such and such, and then that person will look after them and maybe then introduce them around and that sort of thing. So it's sort of a little bit of an idea that I have that haven't really kind of quite got off the ground yet. But it's just about, it's just connecting the dots, I think, from the moment they arrive to, pardon?
It's inclusion.
Yeah, it is inclusion, yeah.
We have welcomers at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
But who's the pastoral care person? I didn't know the
Vera's
designated pastoral care person.
Yeah, so I haven't got there yet. Yeah. So Vera is doing, looking after pastoral care for 8, and Lisa for 10. But I kind of need to sort of rebuild the team. So what they're doing in terms of pastoral care is really keeping track of attendance and following up people who've been away and just making sure people are all right, passing on information to me if there are things I need to know, that sort of thing. But if we can, build the team and we can have a number of people who are involved in that capacity, it's almost like a third welcomer. But we need people to, be able to do it.
I just wasn't aware of any.
Yeah, no, because I haven't really talked about it. It's the first time you're really hearing about it. Any other thoughts or anything I've missed? I think
I've got a challenge. I think that's always good if you are comfortable to do it. Is you say to yourself, because essentially I think welcoming, or you've got to put yourself in that mindset, is that's what I'm going to do in morning tea. If that's what you want to do, you've got to. It's 100% commitment. You say, I'm not going to talk to my besties till I've talked to someone new, or I haven't spoken to, I don't really know them. And you go, right, now I can go and talk to my besties.
yeah, that's good.
You sort of like put yourself you've got to put yourself out there, and diet yourself a little bit.
Yeah, and it's sort of like counteracting the issues of favouritism, isn't it, that James talks about. Don't show favouritism. If we only make a beeline to our friends at morning tea, we are favouring them over everybody else. So I like it, Go talk to somebody that you don't know very well first.
Set yourself a little challenge.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
And if you're nervous, Nancy and I talk about, is get your friend from church to go and talk to the new people together.
Yeah, take a friend.
If you're not, especially if you don't know how to keep a conversation going,
Yeah.
it's easier to do it that way.
Yeah.
And I was going to say another thing that quite often people don't know what to say is, I have sort of all these sayings, but one of them is, people didn't fall into the front door of church by accident.
No.
They actually came on purpose.
Yeah.
And I try to establish pretty quickly what brought them to church. Poor John, West and Susan, they got my welcome package the first time I met them, and then I pulled back very quickly and realised he was a retired Anglican rector. What was coming, the full welcome package, so I pulled right back. But yeah, it's saying, okay, I just usually say, hey, what brings you here? And that's pretty open.
Yeah, what brings you here today?
And they might say, well, I'm having a pretty crap week, or I'm looking at getting baptised, I don't know. Yeah.
Something else that's really helpful for both new people and, well, I think it's helpful for everybody, but when you're in that in-between stage of, it's not my first time here, but I really don't know very many people yet, if everybody else is wearing their name tags, it's really helpful. Because then when you go, oh, I know I met that person last week or the week before, but I can't for the life of me remember their name, if they're wearing it, it's very helpful.
Yeah.
I invited a guy along here because he said he was looking for a church when I was new, and he came, which was fantastic. And then I said, let me introduce you to. And I realised I didn't know anyone's name to introduce you to, and I'm like, well, that guy's the pastor, and
You knew my name.
I know, and you just say, and everyone's lovely.
Yeah.
But I find that when you're welcoming, you've got to know what to say for the moment that you're saying to him, because you can muck a welcoming up very quickly when you start to think of what to say. So the way I would work it is working off a list in your brain instead of just, I've got to say hello to that person, because then you have it so you know what the next step is.
Yeah. Yeah, don't underestimate the importance of the ministry of small talk. There's a lot of relationship building happens just in the small talk, particularly with new people. You don't want to dive deep into probing questions about their life or their lifestyle. Choices that they've made. Keep it light, keep it friendly. Good morning, welcome, great that you're here. Find out if they need anything, if they know where to go, and take them. Don't point if you can. Hard if there's only one welcome on the door. If they're coming loaded up with stuff, like, I've got a single mum with twins who has to come with a, huge pram and a bit of a, open the big doors for them. I'm sure you already do that. But, see if you can help in any way. I really think it's a bit of a bugbear, but the seating in church is a bit of an issue for me. I think it's a bit of a COVID hangover, because you got used to spreading ourselves out and having, social distancing and that, and we're still sitting in a bit of a socially distanced way. But it's hard. People, and particularly new people, they won't clamber over legs to get to the seats that are in the middle. They won't walk down the front. Particularly, newcomers are either early, so we need to be there early to be talking to them, or they're late. And so if they're late, they're going to walk in And that's where being brought in rather than walking in on their own, I think is really important, because then they can be directed to seats. It's a really awkward moment when you walk into a building and 10 o'clock's feels pretty full. There are still plenty of empty seats, mind you, but it feels full, and you look and you go, oh my goodness, where's an empty seat? Oh, right there in the middle of, yeah. And I wouldn't want to walk down the aisle and clamber over people to get to those seats. So I think welcoming also extends to how we think about where we place ourselves in the church for the service too. So what are other things that other people have found helpful in sparking conversation?
I've changed a habit a while ago. Instead of asking what somebody does, which I feel places too much importance on identity of occupation.
What if they're unemployed?
Yeah, I have been saying something more along the lines of what keeps you busy during the week. And so, you know, if they're retired, they can tell me about their travels, or they sit at home, or they, or if they've got young kids, well, that's a whole level of busyness, or they might have a job, or actually I'm looking for work, it's been a struggle, whatever. So it's a fairly open.
I've also had to change a habit of saying my name as a full name instead of a shortened name for the church. Because on my name badge it says my full name.
Edward.
Yeah. So instead of being that way inclined to saying, yeah, my name's Edward, and then let the conversation start there instead of automatically going, can you call me?
Yeah.
The shortened name, let them.
Yeah. I think that's good too. Reframing the question so it's, in a sense, less confronting. I got asked if I was retired the other day, and I'd shaved, so I didn't even have my grey beard on.
Did you look maybe you look relaxed?
I had a friend, my mate who died last year, years and years and years and years ago, used to work for Centrelink. And he'd meet people for the first time, and they'd say, oh, so what do you do? And he says, I work for Centrelink. And they go, you're unemployed, right. It's, you know, Centrelink is, yeah. And so after a while, when people would say, oh, so what do you do? He said, I'm unemployed. Other good welcome questions?
Just say something that I found is helpful, and I'm really excited about this. That a long time ago I was visiting a church, and they talked about a good church has at least 2 things you can invite people to. And I remember sitting there thinking, oops, I think a church can do that. But now I had new people who I was just trying to be restrained. They just wanted to know more. Well, there I am getting going, oh, well then there's the growth groups and we've got the thing for So I think essentially you've got to know what's going on in the church to be able to direct them to something. You're not doing a sales pitch, but you're saying, I don't know if you, and it's literally, I don't know if you're interested in maybe going to a growth group or Bible study. Okay, then there's some here and there, and women, men's, and they go, and okay, well then we've got this and that. Okay.
Well, let's face it. I mean, when people first come to a church, when they're first checking out a new church to go to, they are in consumer mode. So they are wanting to know, how will this church meet my needs? And that, you know, different needs for different people. So actually showing them that there are things on that we do cater for, you know, different age groups and that sort of thing is a good thing to do. I just actually had a thought in my notes here. I've, you know, things that you can do to help welcome people. One of them was we ask them for their details, if we're comfortable with it, how about offering them our email address and saying, if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email or whatever. Where the idea just went to from that, you know I've got business cards with the logo on it and stuff. We could produce blank ones for everybody, and you could have a bunch in your pocket, whatever, and say, I just write my email address down on a church card.
That's a great idea.
It just came to me now. And here's my email address, and it's got the church contact details on it as well, but no name.
But there's a card actually is in the welcome pack, so I don't know if I think they're left over from Love Lanes, whether we've still got some of those we can.
I don't think they've got church details on them, do they?
The Love Lanes ones from the other.
But I thought it was a personal thing, so that you're chatting with somebody and you write down your email. My name's Ali. Here's my email address.
A bit like we did for Love Lanes.
Yeah. Did
We
we?
wrote our name on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Look, I'm done. Unless there are other questions, thoughts, ideas. I hope that was helpful. As I said, look, I think we are a welcoming church. And this is just to ideas to, I guess, develop our thinking around that and maybe extending what we can do. So,